When you stream, it records as well. Nice. So I'm gonna wait for the dashboard to say we're live here before we get started in here.
I just got the notification too.
Yep. So there we are. We're live. Oh shit! I switched off of Hangouts. There we go. I gotta figure this mess out. So welcome to TFA's first mock draft of the 2019 fantasy football season. You may know me, Anthony Pinzone. I'll be your host for this evening alongside of Ryan Alexander and Kevin Steele. Ryan Alexander Williams. I'm gonna say your full name like your mom. Just gonna. You want to leave that as your Twitter thing, bro? I'm just gonna.
Anthony, that's rough, man. That's rough. You coming at me fire, Mama Williams.
I'm going all in. That's it.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I was sticking with the Ryan Alexander, but I'll let you do your thing. You drive it.
Look, even your name on Sleeper app is Ryan Alexander. There it is.
That is true.
I think that's just your last name now.
Keep it consistent.
If you're not familiar with this is sleeper.app. Formerly SleeperBot, you may remember as SleeperBot back in the day, was a popular fantasy football advice app, but now they have this really cool mock draft tool that you can see you can use, and you can invite people. It just gives you a little link. We'll probably do some of these with listeners in the future. We wanted to do our first one with the three of us, get a hang of it, so you can see how we draft from different positions. So you can see that I chose the first spot, Kevin chose the last spot, and Ryan is right smack dab in the middle at number 7. Or as close to the middle as you can be, right, Ryan? So, let's talk a little strategy for the first overall pick. Right now, it seems that the first pick is Saquon, and I don't see a lot of variation in that, mainly because of Todd Gurley's injury. What I like to do, though, is after I take a run, it's usually a running back at the 1.1. And after I take a running back, I will go ahead and probably look for receivers on the swing. That's my mindset, at least. But there's a lot of waiting going into that. Now, not with this app because it happens very quickly. The computer picks all the other picks. But that's what I'll be looking to do once we get this started. So, Kev, I think you actually have to hit start on this. As the top says, the commish has to start the draft.
Yep, let's begin draft.
I didn't click myself either, so you actually couldn't see me. You just heard a voice coming out of nowhere. So I'm here now, dealing with Hangout limitations. So you'll see I'm on the clock. We have set the time to 3 minutes. You can set the time to whatever you want. So I am actually going to go ahead with Saquon. Actually, that's just more information for me. So the little draft icon is there on the left. Seems to be a little fidgety on Firefox. But draft. I got Saquon. You'll see the computer does its thing. We're going through.
Ooh.
And now Ryan is on the clock here.
I knew this was going to be nasty.
Running back heavy, my friend.
Well, running back heavy, but I mean, then you got DeAndre at the 1.5. I love that after the top 4 backs go. Then Devontae Adams at the 1.6, which I thought might be the 1.7. And just to stay on brand, I was going to go that route for Kev's liking. But, So I guess the projected pick right here, David Johnson. We did our running back show a couple weeks back. You guys know I'm not necessarily too high on him, but Kyler Murray being in the offense now, that news wasn't privy to before. I think for me it's going to be Melv Gordon here. I just always find myself leaning towards him a little bit. I think he's a little underappreciated, especially in the fantasy community. He's dealt with some injuries in and of itself too, but as long as Phillip Rivers is right in that offense, they're always going to have scoring opportunities. And him getting into the red zone, I like a lot. It pains me to pass on a guy like Michael Thomas here, but you got to get a running back in the first round, I believe. So.
All right, so he went with Melvin Gordon, and it just kept going running backs, man. It's David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, and then Julio. So Kev is on the clock now with 2 picks in a row.
This is like so easy for me. Like I was not expecting Michael Thomas to fall to this far. Typically, it really depends on for me where I pick for what strategy that I'm going to try to implement. Obviously, I mean, you have to let the draft, kind of fall to you. But in this situation, I don't love any of the running backs that are still left and with my first pick. There is James Conner. He is somewhat intriguing, but I do have my issues with him. So for me, I'm going to go Michael Thomas with the 112. And then we're going to get to come right back. And I'm just going to snag my boy, Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham is in the second round is such a steal, in my opinion. I get it, especially with the landscape that we're in right now among running backs. But like if you go back and look at it, like it was pretty interesting to me. If you go back and look last season, there's not a ton of bell cow. So I understand that some of these early guys, such as like Saquon and McCaffrey and Zeke, for them to go early. But a lot of these other guys have a lot of question marks around them. And I just feel like wide receiver is such a safer pick. And especially once you get here at 112 and then back around on the turn at 2-1. So there's a couple different ways I feel like I could go. But for me, I'm going to go Odell. And then, I'll have Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham. I feel fantastic about my wide receivers.
And you gonna get on him about this or
about which part?
Well, so he has Michael Thomas. I completely agree with that reasoning.
Yeah.
Then he's gonna go Odell Beckham over Dalvin Cook. I got problems. This dude was beating the drum for Dalvin. He could have Dalvin at this point in time, get you a solidified running back one. This dude was in his top 10. Wasn't he like top 6 for you, Kev?
He said he was considering him in the top 5. He said he was going to put him in the top 5.
And you just pass on him. And now I'm just wondering what his strategy is going to be, because now with him going the 2 wide receivers, which Kev always beats the drum for the 0 RB approach. So I'm not surprised here because he likes to be contrarian. But I was really thinking he was going to go Dalvin with that pick.
I thought about it. I love Dalvin. I've said that, and I still love Dalvin Cook this year. But I feel like with Michael Thomas and Odell Beckham Jr. still on the board, there's no way I could pass either one of them up for my boy Dalvin Cook, which he's probably going to go here very soon. But maybe he falls to me. I doubt it. He's not going to fall that far. But I do love Dalvin Cook this year. I think the arrow is pointing straight up for him. The only running back else that's there right now is the Madison kid that they just drafted that there's some hype for on Twitter. But other than that, I love Dalvin. I think he's one of those guys that you can always pencil in as a workhorse back and feel better about than some of these other guys. So, it wasn't that. It was just mainly the 2 guys that were there. If one of those 2, Michael Thomas or Odell, wasn't there, Dalvin Cook would be on my squad right now.
Okay. We did a practice draft the other day, Kev and I, as we were getting prepped for this, and I took the 112 and I took wide receiver. Did that play into that, Kev, or we just happen to have the same strategy on that?
Well, no, I mean, so for me, once I'm picking here at the back end of the draft, right? I immediately go into 0 RB mode because for me, just the wide receivers value is so great at this point. If I can't get my hands on the top 5 or 6 backs, really for me that's Saquon, McCaffrey, Zeke, David Johnson, and Kamara. Then I'm really starting to really second guess myself and really start looking at really start looking at going wide receiver heavy because I just think the value there is so incredible because we have seen wide receiver fall. This draft may be even a little heavier at wide receiver. But really, oh my goodness, Ryan goes Pat Mahomes in the second round. Let's talk about that.
Wow.
Well, we're getting up against the clock there too with the 3-minute timer, and I'll let Anthony kind of talk about his pick too, so leave him some time. But basically what it came down for me was Antonio Brown was the best available. Didn't really feel comfortable about that, or not best available, but he was the projected next pick. I do like Mike Evans this year. I know a lot of talk has been about Chris Godwin with all the targets that have gone with Adam Humphries and Deshaun Jackson not being there. And Mike Evans is a stud. It just really pains me to have him as my number 1 wide receiver. So I just went with the surefire thing. Pat Mahomes is there. Tyreek Hill, he's dealing with the off the field issues, but as long as he's back, they got Kelsey there. They're going to do something with the running game, spice it up with Hyde and Williams and what have you. This dude is just guaranteed points every week. And that's just what I like to just lock in. I do like to wait on quarterback. But when you have a Pat Mahomes that's looking at you, you're at this point in the draft, middle round, and it's going to come back to me. I really wanted Mixon, but he wasn't there. So I just went with surefire points, took Mahomes.
I got nothing. I don't have anything to add to that right now. I'm trying to figure out my pick. So Kev, you take it over.
This dude, 50 touchdowns. I mean, come on. Like,
no, I'm not. I mean, I get it. I mean, Pat Mahomes is my Twitter avatar. I mean, he's my dude. Ride and die with that man. But I mean, that's too rich for my blood. I mean, I love Pat. I love Patrick Mahomes, and I know there's a lot of talk going on right now around Twitter about, oh, he's gonna regress. Like okay. Shocker, so you think the guy who threw 50 touchdowns isn't going to throw 50 touchdowns? Okay. The question is where does he actually come in at this year? If he throws for 40 touchdowns, let's say, or 40 total touchdowns between passing and rushing, and then, still gives you 4,500 yards, you're still talking about a top 2 or 3 quarterback, if not top 5 at worst. Then, right. So like, I don't hate that, but taking him in the second round is so tough because you're really passing up on a premium position like a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver. So for me personally, I would rather go, position player there, but I get it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what it comes down to at this point is like the guys who just went after him. You're talking about Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Damian Williams, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper with Anthony. Like, don't mind those. Those are great picks. Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Leonard Fournette, Devontae Freeman, Keenan Allen. Like, I'm not really sold on those players putting up more points than Mahomes. Maybe they will, but like we just saw this dude just take the league by storm, 50 touchdowns as a rookie. He gets pretty much all of his weapons back. Yes, the league has, quote unquote, more film on the kid. It's sophomore slump year, quote unquote. But I just love his ability from a fantasy standpoint. I think it's great. And when we're talking about, coming on the wrap around there, like I don't feel like I've missed out on too many options personally, because I'm about to go Stephon Diggs right here. And he, to me, I'm locking in. I now have a running back, a wide receiver, and a quarterback that I feel comfortable with to finish atop their position at any point. And that's what I think about when I'm drafting for redraft is I just want guys who I think are going to compete for atop their position, especially in these early rounds. And so I got Melvin Gordon, Pat Mahomes, and Stephon Diggs. I think those are all in the top tier of their position, all players.
So I went back-to-back receivers, as you saw, and as you mentioned, with Thielen and Cooper. I'm all aboard the Thielen train this year, so he'll probably regress heavily because that just always happens to me, man. Like last year I didn't really like Thielen at all, and then he came out and he balled out again. So that means this year I really like him, and he won't do anything. I picked them over the available running backs, which were Nick Chubb, Devonta Freeman, Josh Jacobs, because I don't just because. Do you really need a reason for that? Those guys don't inspire me to have them as my RB2, especially in the second or third round. None of them really jumped out at me. And Amari Cooper did some amazing stuff once he got down there with Dak in Dallas. Now he could go back to being the lazy Amari Cooper who, essentially worked himself out of Oakland. I don't know that that's going to happen. Everybody wants to play for Dallas, right? It's like they still go on about that, players, it's America's team and all that stuff. So I think Cooper continues what he started, and he has a really good season.
I love that, Ant. I love that.
By the way, almost took Zach Ertz there. Really, really close to taking Ertz. He is Wentz's go-to receiver. Like he's practically not a tight end in that offense. I mean, he is a receiver. So I almost went Zach Ertz.
Yes, I was working on my rankings, trying to get those done because Kev's been in my DMs getting on me about finishing them up. And Zach Ertz is my tight end one, man. I love him this year. I think he's straight. But we got to talk about Kev's picks here. Aaron Jones and Chris Godwin. Just go ahead, take the floor, Kev.
Yeah, this is a risk written all over it.
It's unbelievable.
So I mean, yeah, I mean,
I love how he laughs.
I'm staying on brand with Chris Godwin. I've talked ad nauseum about Chris Godwin and how I think he's the GOAT, and I think he's in for a big year this year. So for me, the decision was when I was looking at wide receiver, I thought about not going running back and continue the train at the third pick. I decided to go Aaron Jones. I love Aaron Jones. I think his ceiling this year is really high. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did end up coming into that top 5 position, top 5 among running backs this year. The dude has all the talent in the world. As long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be. I think the Green Bay offense really takes another, big step forward this year after the dismal year that they had last year. So having Aaron Jones and getting him in the third round, I think that's pretty solid value for him because I think he's somebody. I mean, last year he had over a 5 yard per carry average. Somebody who. When you're tethered to Aaron Rodgers in that offense. So I just think that offense is going to be much better this year. The ghost of McCarthy's gone. The worst coach in the league is done. So I just really like the Green Bay offense as a whole, and I think getting Aaron Jones in the third round was a solid pick. And then Chris Godwin, I put out a tweet the other day about him. I honestly think I have him right now ranked top 15 among wide receivers right now. I think I'm having him at 15. Right now, if you look at the Tampa Bay situation right now, he has. It's really hard to if you really try to think about it and not just come up with like lame answers of how he doesn't take another big step forward this year. You're really going to be hard pressed to find those answers because if you look at that offense, they're fourth and they have 37% of the team's targets are vacated this year. This is the fourth highest in the league with Deshaun Jackson. Adam Humphries gone. Who else do they have to throw the ball to there? It's Mike Evans. It's Chris Godwin. And then you have from there, you have Justin Watson. And you have obviously, the third wide receiver, and then you have OJ Howard, who I really like this year, and another guy I think that can break out. I think this offense is going to be among the league leaders in pass attempts again this year. If you really go back and look last year, it didn't really matter who was really at quarterback. The Tampa Bay quarterbacks finished actually QB2 if you combine Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston last year. So I just really love this offense. Then you factor in Bruce Arians now as the head coach. I just think this offense takes a really big step forward next year. And then I still think their defense is going to be trash. I don't know what to think about their running game, so I think they're going to be leaning on the pass. So that's why I took Chris Godwin in the fourth round. It might be a little rich, but for me, where I think he's going to finish, I have no problem taking Chris Godwin there.
It's definitely rich, but I get it. I get it. Slot receivers and Arians offense as well too. Big thing. Larry Fitzgerald hashtag. I went Sony Michel, staying on brand as well too. In the running back show, I talked about how much I loved him this year. I know health concerns there are pretty worrisome, but 209 rushing attempts as a rookie, balled out in the playoffs with 6 touchdowns. Tom Brady's getting old. Guys are leaving the Patriots from the receiving standpoint. I just think they're going to lean on him heavily this year, and I want him on my team.
Yeah, I think I went with my first risk here, and that's Cooper Kupp. And if you just look at numbers alone, he's not a risk, right? The guy balled out. He's a favorite target of Jared Goff. The Rams offense was hurt considerably once he went out. The risk is he's coming off of an injury. We don't know how he's going to come back from that or if he will bounce back from that. So I'm hopeful in that situation, and I'll draft a little later to kind of make up for that possibility. And then I went with my boy Kenyon Drake. And now in my real drafts, I don't typically draft Dolphins because I like to root my team on without any ulterior suggestions going on there or anything else that I have to root for. But Kenyon Drake is so savagely underrated in this league. And then somebody was posting today just some of what makes him great with his jump cuts and his ability to squeeze into tiny holes and everything. Like, I don't know what to expect from Miami's offense this year. I don't know anything really about the type of offense that Brian Flores is going to look for, but I really hope that Kenyon Drake's a big part of it because I think that will help us at least salvage a couple wins this year. It's going to be a tough year as it is. Can we at least get 2 or 3 wins while we're out here?
Absolutely. I hear you. And I love Kenyon Drake this year too. With my next pick, I got to go with the freak, Tyreek Hill. It's blasphemous that Kevin has 3 receivers on his team and is allowing me to scoop this guy up in the 5th round. Guys like Brandon Cooks going ahead of him, that doesn't make sense. Sammy Watkins got drafted right before Tyreek. That's ridiculous. I guess, if you fear the off-field things coming back to bite him, I guess that's a point, but I just can't pass up on the value there in the 5th round, especially having taken Mahomes second.
Yeah, I mean, he may not play this year, but hopefully you're doing your real draft later on, much later on, so that you'll actually know if he's playing or not. Given the situation, we can't assume that he's not going to, so that's a steal of a pick. Any surprises so far, especially like amongst the computer picks or like what round anybody has gone in? It looks like it's going a little quarterback heavy now. We saw 3 go last round with Luck, Rodgers, and Mayfield all coming off in the 5th round.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's very interesting that we talk about what running back situations mean, and with the backfields becoming, definitely you have to have 2 competent running backs. So David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen just went like pretty soon.
Same round,
They
yeah.
went, yeah, same round. And that's interesting to me. I love this David Montgomery kid. Loved him at Iowa State. Not really a big college football watcher myself personally, but kind of just kept up with him. And especially then the Bears were thinking about, they're trading Jordan Howard. You're thinking about running backs. So kind of just looked briefly at his film. Just love the way he runs. Love what he's going to be able to bring to the team. Can catch passes out of the backfield too. So I think he will, kind of take some of that flair from Tariq Cohen, but I'm curious to see what they do with Tariq Cohen as far as putting him out at receiver, possibly, running him out in some slots. Anthony Miller was banged up a lot last year. I know Evan Silva just tweeted kind of about how he's kind of progressed with the shoulder injury and a couple other injuries that he's had. But Tariq Cohen's definitely a facet to be used. So it's going to be hard to judge how these 2 guys are used, with one being a rookie and the other one kind of coming into a new role.
Yeah, with Kev's pick here, we've seen 3 rookie running backs go off the board now in the first 6 rounds. I am not a college football watcher myself, so I don't really know what to make of that. But Miles Sanders, Kev, you must see something in this guy that you like. He is your RB2 as it stands right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely think that he has the potential to be a 3-down back in Philadelphia. The thing that scares me is that Doug Peterson has never really used a workhorse back. I think when you go look at Jay Ajayi, he was getting like 50-some% of the touches. You really want your workhorse to be up there in the upper 60s to 70% range if you're really talking about a workhorse back. With him, I just feel like that he's somebody that can bring something in both the run and pass game. Their offensive line is still solid. And I mean, they use heavy draft capital on him. I believe they use a 2nd-round pick on him, so they really like him. They really talked him up. They've said that this is a guy that they really haven't had since Doug Peterson has been there. So I mean, if he gets the reins to that backfield and he does turn into a workhorse, he's somebody. As long as he doesn't go too far up in the ADP, I think he's somebody that's kind of a steal a little bit in the 6th round. Philadelphia, that still is one of the. I still think that offense is still one of the top 10 in the league. So, getting a running back like that, and if he can develop into, a true workhorse back, I don't hate the pick. Obviously, I kind of, I'm swinging for upside here on that pick. There's a lot of other running backs in the later rounds that I really like. So, I almost actually went with James White, but I decided to go Miles Sanders. This is, for everybody, this is a full point PPR league. So yeah, I mean, I really thought about going James White, because that's the problem, really, or not the problem, but that's one of the hard things about really with fantasy football, is that most running backs now, we don't really have a ton of like true workhorse backs, and everybody else is kind of like either a satellite back or they're grinders, right? And that's kind of the that's kind of the way you're gonna have to go with it. And now for me, I feel like that, especially in a PPR, the reception factor is such a bigger it's so huge that I would rather go with guys who have that upside. So I will probably start taking some guys who feature more as just simply pass catching backs. So I'm cool with that. And then Allen Robinson, I don't understand. Like, I probably took him higher than what most people probably would, because he's going in like the 8th or 9th round right now. And to me, that's blasphemous. He still has the potential to be a true wide receiver 1. I mean, he had some flashes last year. I know he had that huge game. And I think it was him and Anthony Miller both had a monster game. I think that offense takes another step forward this year under Matt Nagy. So I have no problem with taking Allen Robinson. I don't know why everybody's so down on him. He was banged up a little bit last year, but if this offense could take another step forward, Allen Robinson is a true asset and one of the most undervalued players right now heading into the draft.
No, absolutely, Kev. No question about that. That's fantastic. I love that pick.
And then, really, Anthony just snipes me and takes my boy Latavius Murray. That's like my late round running back, and Anthony just snags him from me. And then I will say Kenyon Drake is really starting to really pick up some steam right now. Everybody seems to be kind of warming up to the idea of Kenyon Drake. I don't really know what to make of him. I don't really know if he's actually good or not. And the other problem with taking him is knowing that he's in a bad offense. Unless Ryan Fitzpatrick turns into Ryan Fitzmagic again.
Yeah, we think it's a bad offense. We don't know anything about this offense yet.
Yeah, I mean, the offense was not that great last year either. And, I mean, he didn't do what you thought he would, but he had some flashes in the pan. So if they can just turn it around a little bit, plus he's going to have, I think, more control over that backfield now than he once did. So I'm excited to see that because the dude was putting up numbers with 12 touches, 13 touches. Nothing pissed you off more as a Kenyon Drake owner last year.
Well, they didn't draft one, right? We talked about how we wouldn't be surprised if Miami took a running back in the second or third round, maybe the fourth round. It didn't happen. They didn't take one.
It didn't happen. No.
So it's Drake and Balaj, and Balaj. Listen, even if they get 30 carries between them, there's a good chance that one of them has a really good day, and I would hope that's Drake. I don't know much about Balaj still. We didn't get to see him a lot. He did have a really good run. I think he had like a really good 56-yard scamper last year for a touchdown, which was awesome, and it was a nice little jolt to a otherwise tough season to watch. But yeah, I went with Murray, and I think anybody who's watched in the past knows I'm not a huge Latavius Murray fan, but this is an opportunity game at this point with running backs, and Murray's going to have more opportunity, I think, down there in New Orleans than most of the guys who were left on the board. You could tell last year they were more run focused than ever. Brees, I think, had like career lows in attempts since he joined New Orleans and stuff like that. So the offense is going more towards the run. And then I took a flyer on this Dante Pettis kid who everybody is raving about and I know nothing about, but I know that there's not a lot of receiving talent in San Francisco. So why not take a flyer on this guy? I think he's my wide receiver 4. Yep, he's my wide receiver 4. Why the heck not? I almost took DJ Moore there, but I don't know, to run it, the quarterback situation there with Cam. Does anybody really know if he's healthy at this point?
No, nobody knows. He was doing that celibacy thing or whatever the hell. That's pretty much all I know. That's pretty much all I know about Cam, off-season Cam at this point.
I think that's the scary thing with him right now is that nobody really knows. It was kind of like an Andrew Luck situation of really last year is that, heading into the year, we didn't really know what to make of him because, he missed time last year with the shoulder injury and it sounded like it was pretty serious. And I guess he opted not for surgery. So I don't know, man. Like it's tough. Obviously we're going to know far more come August. So obviously doing this in May is a little bit different. But I do like DJ Moore quite a bit. And I also like another guy that we'll probably talk about later. But DJ Moore is in a really good position this year to take another step forward in that offense. I just don't know if, I have my concerns with Cam. Obviously he's great for fantasy football because of his ability to run the football. But as a true pass catcher or as a true, we've only seen him 1 year ever really put up really big numbers in the passing game, and I think so that's somewhat concerning for anybody who wants to draft any wide receiver in this, on Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think realistically, if I were actually doing this draft for real, I would not take a guy like Dante Pettis until I did more and found out more about the situation that he's in. And plus, by the time we all draft, we're gonna have more information about Cam too. Hopefully, don't forget, Andrew Luck started last season awful. I mean, he looked like he couldn't even throw the ball at the beginning of last season. Then that speaks to how good he did the rest of the year. I think it was like after the first month, he really kind of got his groove back and got going again. I mean, he just destroyed the world because I'm pretty sure he still finishes like a top 5 fantasy quarterback despite such a bad start, which was absolutely insane.
Yeah, so going back to the draft. So my next pick, I chose to go Vance McDonald. I didn't feel great about it, but tight end is so trash this year. Like, I know we say this every year that like after you get past the top four guys, like tight end is trash. You should stream tight end, but like tight end is absolutely abysmal this year. And just looking at I mean, we talked about how Tampa Bay has lost targets. I mean, think about the Steelers situation now with, I mean, Bell didn't play for a whole year, but still, Bell's not coming back. Antonio Brown's gone. And like Ben Roethlisberger pretty much has Juju Smith-Schuster and a slew of guys to throw to: Ryan Switzer, Eli Rogers, James Washington, Vance McDonald. Jesse James is gone. So I like Vance McDonald. I went ahead and went to snag him. I was, kind of holding out hope that Christian Kirk would still be there, but Kev got him, and I love that pick too. I want exposure to the Arizona offense. But what it comes down to for me is Vance McDonald. I think, he's going to see a little bit better of a Heath Miller role in this offense. And, Heath Miller, he was putting up 750, 800 yards and getting touchdowns. And if you think that Vance McDonald's going to be a red zone threat, and Ben Roethlisberger has kind of leaned on Vance McDonald in key situations over these past couple of years. So I think he'll be heavily involved in the offense, and I like him. So I went ahead and snagged him at the 707.
You're up at 807 or 80. What is it? 806 now. What are you thinking here?
806 now. So I'll make my pick here. It's going to be a wide receiver, and then I'll let Kev talk about his picks. You know what? I like this guy. I'm going to pick him now. D.D. Westbrook from Jacksonville, to kind of make my wide receiver core a little bit stronger there. Passing up on guys like Larry Fitzgerald. He's just getting old. Emmanuel Sanders would normally be my pick there, but I think he's falling because of his health concerns. Not expected to be playing or doing football activities until July with the Achilles injury. Geronimo Allison, not too sold on. Hardman is there. Wouldn't mind that, but I already have Tyreek and don't like Sterling Shepard because I don't like anything Giants. So I like snagging D.D. Westbrook here. I think he's going to break out in this offense now. Jacksonville's kind of rejuvenated. I think they have their guy at quarterback that they think they want, and I think that he's better than the receivers that they have right now. So he should definitely get a majority of the looks.
Yeah, so for my picks, you already mentioned I took Christian Kirk at 712, and then I followed that around. I really wanted to puke a little bit. And a part of me wanted to die inside with taking Ronald Jones in the 8th round. But
I was gonna say, don't you hate Ronald Jones? What the hell was that?
Well, so for me with him, right? So they didn't really invest at all in the running back position through the draft. So I do think that's one telling sign. And two, all that's there still is Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. I guess they did bring in Andre Allington, but I mean, how old is that dude now? But so with him, like I do think there's some intrigue there, in the Bruce Arians offense. We know that he understands how to. I feel like he is a coach who understands. He doesn't try to, take his scheme and make players fit into it. He will take the players and build a scheme around them. And so for me, I do think he's going to put Ronald Jones in his best position. We didn't really have a huge sample size from him last year. I don't, at this point in the draft, taking him in the 8th, 9th round, 10th round, wherever you may be able to get him, I do think he may creep up a little bit higher, and as the summer rolls on, as we get closer into the through this part of the off season, and as we get closer, into August when everything really starts to heat up, I do think he's a guy that's probably going to be a riser, probably go a little higher than probably what I was able to get him at, but. There is quite a bit of upside. And once you're kind of getting into this part of the draft, this is when I really will start to try to take swings for the fences on a lot of these guys, because I tend to not draft safe when we get here, because I'm just looking for upside. So with Ronald Jones, like I do think the potential's there. There's nobody else there. He could end up being a workhorse. He it's just going to be interesting with him. Like I said, I don't love it right now just because he left such a bad taste in my mouth. But there's another player, named Devontae Adams who I absolutely hated and despised, and he's kind of turned out okay. So, yeah.
This is all just shaping up for Kev to take Jameis Winston at quarterback and just be on the Tampa Bay 2019 bandwagon.
That's what he's looking for. He's aiming for that.
Course.
It's coming.
I know it. And go ahead and talk to us about your picks.
Oh, and talk to us about I really want you to focus in on Carlos Hyde, because you seem to be like every draft I've seen you do now, you've had Carlos Hyde. So what is your love for Carlos Hyde?
Listen, I was driving the train for Carlos Hyde 2 years ago, ended up being right, so I guess I'm just hoping for a miracle once again that I'm right on Carlos Hyde being a thing. I saw Damian Williams for 3 or 4 years of his career. He's a very fine player and a very fine running back, but he is not going to hold the position to himself. And I think Carlos Hyde has looked fantastic these past few years, despite the situations he's been put in. We talked about before how Cleveland just kind of showed him off for a month before fire sailing him off to Jacksonville, where he gets stuck behind Leonard Fournette and TJ Yeldon. I think he got like 4 or 5 carries a game. I don't really know many running backs that are going to put much production up with that. So I think he has a lot of opportunity in Kansas City. They've been looking for a running back, and I think they thought they found that in Kareem Hunt before that whole situation went down. Somebody who can carry the workload and just be their workhorse back. I think Carlos Hyde can do that. And then I just filled my quarterback position with Carson Wentz. I don't think that needs much explaining. He's Carson Wentz. He was the MVP a few years ago, or at least he would have been if he didn't get hurt. So,
and what are your thoughts on Kyler Murray? Just because he went in the same round, we just talked about Cam not being sure about him, so I get what the Wentz over Cam. But what are your thoughts on Kyler Murray and why Wentz over him?
Oh gosh, I feel like you're setting me up for a rant here with that.
I'm trying to.
I don't like Kyler Murray at all. I didn't like him going into this draft. And Kev yells at me because I did watch a few games of him, but the one that stuck out to me the most was Alabama. And everybody had talked this guy up to me as the most accurate passer to ever play in college football, and he lifted the team up around him. And then I watched this game against Alabama where he can't hit the freaking broadside of a barn. He's throwing the ball behind his receivers consistently. And a lot of what I saw out of him was wide open receivers on a really good team. So maybe he'll end up being awesome, and I will be completely wrong. But there's something about Kyler Murray that I just do not like. And the interview with Dan Patrick really kind of added to that too. Like, I like a guy with good character, and maybe he does have good character, and that was just one bad interview. But man, don't do that interview then if you're gonna do and perform in the manner that he did on that show. It was very immature, and that really added a bad taste in my mouth for Kyler Murray.
I gotta pull that up. I haven't seen that. I will say though, and one of my struggles every year in redraft too is selecting these quarterbacks that I know watching them are trash quarterbacks from an NFL perspective, but yet they put up fantasy points week in and week out, and nothing pisses me off more. Like, never liked Blake Bortles, hate watching him, but I'll be damned if that dude didn't put up 25, 30 fantasy points on a week when they got blown out by 30 because he was putting up points in the fourth quarter.
Dude.
And not to say that Kyler Murray is going to be in that position, but like we just saw it last year with guys like Lamar Jackson. And, we've seen it before where these guys just come in and he's a running guy. Like, he's going to maybe be forced to scramble, maybe and use his legs more. And Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald there hopefully can help him out a little bit. David Johnson as well.
And Ryan, it's funny because I could absolutely see that. And, but even in Baker Mayfield last year and Sam Darnold and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, they all had big games, but they were all towards the second half of the year. It takes these rookies a little time to get used to the speed of the game. And to see Kyler Murray going in the same round as guys like Jared Goff and I think Cam Newton and let me bring that up, and And Carson Wentz,
yeah.
you know, like, I mean, these guys have all done something in the NFL, and they've all have proven track records as good fantasy options. By the way, Blake Bortles like won my first round of the playoffs for me last year to get me into the championship. So mad
Of
props
course he did.
to Blake Bortles, who's now a backup to Jared Goff. But
Of
but
course he did.
but you're right though. The quarterbacks is always such like a weird topic for me too, because there's a bunch of guys that are gonna go, and then they're gonna get cut after week 2 or week 3 for people that were just slept on. Like Big Ben gets slept on every year. This is probably the year 2 sleep on him. Phillip Rivers gets slept on every year. Does nothing but 4,530 every single year, but nobody drafts him. So it seems to be the nature of the quarterback beast in fantasy.
No, I hear you. I wanted to get you on a rant, and I just love talking about that position because I think it's important. I think it's important to separate the real life football guys from the fantasy goodness that could be had.
It's my favorite position to honestly watch and analyze. This is maybe because it's a finite group of players, and like, you know, when you start getting to running backs and receivers and stuff like that, there's so many unknowns. Like, how often are they going to get the ball, and you know, how many players are around them that could take the, you know, with the quarterback, it's just them. It's the quarterback. He's the guy. You can analyze on a 1-to-1 comparison to other players in the position without worrying about opportunity and all that.
Right.
So for me, when it comes to Kyler Murray, the only issue that I worry, that I feel like he's going to continue to rise up draft boards, that he could end up being a guy that we see go in like the 6th, 7th, 8th round, somewhere in that range. And I think that's too high. Maybe. I don't know. See, the thing with Kyler Murray is that we know he has that potential to be a running quarterback, which is huge. And for anybody that, I mean, look at Josh Allen last year. Look at Lamar Jackson. I mean, those guys, once they got an opportunity to really to play, they were able to carry you and teams. Because I remember last year during the DFS DJ Nation pod, we were like just kind of like laughing about Josh Allen, because I remember even like, I think it was the second week of the year whenever he finally got to start, and I kind of laughed at Maddie on the show, because he was advocating for Josh Allen, and I was just laughing at him because I just thought he was horrible, right? Well,
we played him.
Yeah, we played him and cash and stuff like that. But you know, going back to that, but like his ability to run adds so much more to him. And so for Kyler Murray, we know he has that ability in him, and somebody who could get 600-700 rushing yards. And if you get that from him, and he may struggle some as a passer, I do think there's reasons to be optimistic in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I think this is the first time we're actually going to see like a full air raid offense, like a college style offense here, where they're going to be in the shotgun probably the majority of the time. Very rarely will you see them line up and, you know, under center. And I think that's going to, you know, do wonders for Kyler Murray. And so, like, there's not a ton of weapons there. You have Christian Kirk and old man Larry Fitzgerald, and, you know, they drafted Hakeem Butler. You know, and I have David Johnson. They don't really have a bunch of tight end. They still have Ricky Seals-Jones, I believe. So, like, there's not a ton of great pieces. But with his ability to be able to run the football, it's going to be hard for him not to really pay off wherever you draft him. And somebody who could end up being a QB1. Like, I have him ranked at QB12 right now. I moved him up after the draft. Did my, you know, post-draft rankings, and I have him at QB12. And I don't think that's blasphemous. I think with his running ability,
it's 100% blasphemous.
With his ability to run the football,
it's ridiculous.
His ability as a passer.
And you're not getting Jameis, by the way, just to cut in, because the computer just took him. So.
Yo, the computer out here playing games, bro. I'm looking at these picks. I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? Defensive run.
The computer heard Kev talking about Jameis before.
They did.
And it was
never
like,
mentioned him. You guys did.
Well, it doesn't matter.
They heard me.
It heard us talking about him, and now he's gone. Like Tom Brady in the 11th round is so crazy, right? He's not a very good fantasy quarterback, but to think of like the greatest, one of the, if not the greatest quarterback of all time, going that late in any sort of competition just seems wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing with Tom Brady, though, as he gets to the latter part of his career is, you know, the numbers are always going to be not, I don't even want to say average. Not average is not what I'm looking for, but just, pedestrian. Like he's gonna get you there. I think what the Tom Brady that we were used to seeing with Randy Moss and throwing up these 50 burgers and what have you, like just out of the blue, out of the ordinary. It is kind of worrisome because the guys that he's used to throwing to just aren't around. And you bring in a guy like N'Keal Harry, that could help, but you're losing a guy like Gronk, who is a guy that even when he was banged up, Brady leaned on a lot. So I'm not opposed to it this year as so much in previous years, because I play in a 2 quarterback league, and he's one of the guys I love to get because you know what you're getting out of him. So he's definitely not a sexy play, but I take him over Jameis. I know that.
So, do you guys see any trends? I don't know how many drafts you've done. So, I've done one. I did the one best ball video, right? And then Kevin and I did the mock draft. It was either yesterday or the day before to get prepped for tonight. Do you see yourself falling into any trends yet? Because I definitely see like 4 or 5 guys on this team that I drafted in both of the other drafts as well.
No, I mean, this is honestly the first draft that I'm doing, and so I know myself, and like I said, I love to get guys who I think are going to finish at the top, and I go through my rankings and I have my tiers. And in the first couple of rounds, I'm trying to target as many players in the top tier that I can. And once I feel confident that I've rounded out the positions in that facet, then when it gets to 5th, 6th, 7th round, I'm just trying to, like Kev said, I'm trying to get guys that are upside and that have been in my wheelhouse that I like, because I label guys as sleepers all the time. So like I can see myself having a ton of Vance McDonald, a ton of D.D. Westbrook at their ADPs right now. Austin Eckler I took because I had Melvin Gordon. I like to get the handcuff there. Like Marquise Goodwin this year. So I will go through my list, and I'll probably have my guys that I want to target, and I'll end up with 3 or 4 of them on every team.
How about you, Kev? Any guys that you're pretty much getting on both teams so far?
Absolutely. Chris Godwin, Aaron Jones, Deshaun, the guy I actually just took.
I love Deshaun, man. I love him.
I love me some Deshaun too. I think that he may end up leading this team in targets. I really like Cortland Sutton too, but I just don't think that this offense is going to be high volume, and I think so. With that, he's not a guy who's going to be fed targets. I think he's more of a deep ball, contested catch type of guy, red zone target. So I just think Deshaun really stands out to me. He's a terrific route runner, kind of a guy in the second half of last year that really kind of turned it on at the second half once he finally was given an opportunity. You have concerns with Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders may not even make it through camp. I mean, we don't know that for sure. He's coming back off injury himself, and there's talk that he could possibly start the year on the PUP list. So with Deshaun, he's a true slot receiver. I think he's somebody that is probably going to be fed some targets and looking. I mean, obviously in that situation with Joe Flacco, it's not the best situation in the world, but I do think Joe Flacco is a good enough quarterback to be able to. You saw it last year kind of with John Brown. There's guys out there that I think that he can. He's good enough to be able to support somebody like Deshaun Hamilton for the long term, and I just think he's probably the next big thing there in Denver. I know like I said, a lot of people love Cortland Sutton, but it really feels like Cortland Sutton is kind of the Demaryius Thomas in the offense, where Deshaun is more of the Emmanuel Sanders. So I like him a lot. With my last couple of picks that I've taken, I did actually also take Royce Freeman. He's another guy. I'm sorry, Anthony. I know you love Philip Lindsay, but I just don't think that he's not a workhorse back. I don't think he's going to be nearly as efficient as he was last year with his like 5.5 yards per carry average. The dude's like 185 pounds. I don't know. Like maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but I don't think he replicates what he did last year. I think there's a good chance that we could see Royce Freeman take a step forward in that offense. It wasn't so much as Royce Freeman was as bad last year; he just wasn't really given the opportunity. So I like him, especially somebody that you could get in the later rounds, take a flyer on. So I really do like Royce Freeman. I mean, last year he was going a little bit higher than what he is now, but so I took him, and then I took Kiki Kuti. I really, really like that kid. I like when he was able to stay healthy when he wasn't dealing with soft tissue injuries last year. He was another guy that I think that could be a big part of the Houston Texans offense this year. They still have DeAndre Hopkins, obviously. Will Fuller, when he can stay healthy, is very dynamic as a deep threat. But I think that underneath route, as he's shown to be a strong route technician. So I really like Kuti. And then, also took Donta Foreman, another guy that I just kind of took a flyer on, coming back off a major injury. I'm going to be honest with you, because Lamar Miller is just Lamar Miller. He's just a guy. But I put a tweet out about this not that long ago, about Damare Crockett, former Mizzou Tiger, a winner drafted this year. He's somebody that, because he wasn't invited to the combine, so not a lot of people really know who he is. Unless you're like a college football head, or a fan of Mizzou, you don't really know who this guy is. But at the combine, at his pro day, they said he ran a low 4.4 40. I mean, he's a big dude too. He's not some little running back. Mm-hmm. So he's seeking, and they gave him a pretty good chunk of change as an undrafted rookie, which tells you a little bit of what they think of him. And with only Lamar Miller and then Donta Foreman coming off injury, he's definitely a late round guy. He's definitely a deep sleeper right now. They did bring in another kid from Michigan as a late round or as an undrafted running back as well. But Crockett is the guy that I'm going to keep my eye on. If he makes that team, he's something that's very interesting that people could be looking to stash on the roster.
Yeah, no disrespect, because I can't disrespect the dude. He's a legend, but Crockett does remind me a little bit of LeGarrette Blount. Would you say that, Kev? And I hate to put him in that light because of how great LeGarrette Blount was, and people start hearing that name and think good things out of him. He's a little bit faster than he was, but he just plays with that type of intensity and energy.
I don't know if I would call him that. I think that I would. And like you said, I don't really like going up this high and grabbing this type of a name. But for me, I would say he reminds me more of DeMarco Murray.
Okay.
So I mean, he is the frustrating thing about him, at least at Mizzou, was he would flash he would flash at times like greatness, and you could see exactly what everybody loved about him. His rookie year, he was great. He rushed for almost 1,000 yards his rookie season, his freshman year, I should say, and then has kind of dealt with some injuries his last 2 years, so that's kind of what hurt him a little bit. And he lost touches to Roundtree there at Mizzou, but he has all the physical traits to be an NFL back. So I just think he's somebody that I would be keeping my eyes on if I was, people, especially in a really deep league, like a 16-team league where you're kind of getting really deep. He's certainly a name if he makes it through and is able to, latch on with the Texans. It's somebody that I would be monitoring for sure.
Gosh, it's we're really getting in deep here. We just started the 15th round. I took Jamison Crowder to kind of finish off the 14th round, who is another guy who I've been targeting a ton. And I just noticed this draft looks so much similar to my other ones, like Devin Funchess, Jalen Samuels, both guys I've been targeting a ton. Carlos Hyde, that you mentioned before, and then Adam Thielen. I think that would be the guys that I've been targeting pretty much every draft. I was trying to get Trey Burton here on the swing, to have Fant and Burton, because I think Burton had signs of life in Philadelphia before going to Chicago. He had think he had an injury riddled season, but I don't really know what happened with him. I didn't have any shares of him last year, but this late in the draft, I'd like to get another tight end like that just to kind of throw in and hope for the best. Like maybe a Kyle Rudolph. It's tough. Duke Johnson, we have no idea where the heck he's even going to be, right? He's not going to be in Cleveland, that's for sure.
Well, he's still on the roster, and I mean they've said that they're not planning on getting rid of him. I would think if they were going to, they'd have done it already.
That's true.
So I mean, I think he still is in Cleveland.
No, he is holding out at OTAs though. I mean, I think he's very unhappy with how the Kareem Hunt situation went down, and he's obviously been he was a huge part of their kind of get back to success. I feel like, I mean, he was doing some things for them out of the slot, out of the backfield, being heavily relied on for a little bit. And, you go to being, a guy who is a counted upon role player and really integral in a team's success, you feel like. And then they bring in Odell, they bring in another running back at your position who's dealing with his own stuff, his own baggage, and really kind of just say that you're not good enough, basically. So unless they're like planning on doing something with him, I mean, now the receiving core is pretty deep. Landry, Odell, Callaway, Higgins, these guys. So I don't even know if there's room to like have them out at the slot as they were using them as.
And I'm going with my boy Albert Wilson in Miami. 2 Dolphins in 1 draft. Look at that. Kev, just showing off how late you can wait for a quarterback, grabbing the 4,530 touchdown Kirk Cousins here in the 14th round, which is
that's crazy,
absurd. I mean, that guy is, everybody like hates on him last year. He had a great year. Even Dak Prescott going in the 14th round is kind of crazy. I mean, it just proves that you can wait for a quarterback. There's no need to draft the guys, any earlier. I'm even thinking back to taking Carson Wentz at the 9th round. Was there anybody else in that round I should have taken ahead of him now? I don't see anybody right off the top of my head, but I'm sure I could have found someone that would have fit in there better. What else do we have going here? The Duke did go to the computer here shortly after. Andy Isabella in Arizona. I know nothing about that guy. I've heard his name a lot on Twitter, but this Deebo Samuel's another one. There's so many names I just don't know yet. We're in May, so I have some time, but we got to do some learning on some of these guys. Marquise Brown in Baltimore is another one of those guys. Isaiah Crowell in Oakland actually may not be a bad pickup. Oh no, he's out for the year, right?
Oh my
God.
God.
He wouldn't have been a bad pickup. He's out for the year. Kev goes with Josh Gordon every single time.
I can't believe this, dude. I just cannot believe.
Oh, so we don't have a 16th round, so that was it. Yeah.
Are you kidding me, Kev?
Every time, man. I'm gonna hide.
You're muted too. That's just the fantasy god saying you don't deserve to talk on this topic.
Bro, he's gonna be back this year, okay?
This is every year.
Every single year.
Man, this dude got more comebacks than Star Wars, man. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely absurd. Come on, man. No,
everybody talks about Julian Edelman. They drafted N'Keal Harry, but everyone forgets Josh Gordon is coming back, okay? He's gonna be back. He signed his restricted free agent tender. He's gonna be back. When that is, I don't know. We'll get an update. This is about the time every year we get a Josh Gordon update when he's gonna be back. And
dude, this is just another Jeremy Hill. I kind of feel sorry for you in these situations when you get attached to these players and you don't know how to let go. Like, there's got to be counseling for this, right?
There shouldn't be though. Josh Gordon is a stud. Okay.
If anybody out there is listening who knows who a fantasy football counselor, please let us know. Yes. We need to get somebody in to talk to Kev right away.
Send help. PLZ.
So I hid on the stream. I hid our faces and I hid the players and everything to show the full draft board, so we can kind of get a glimpse of how this thing turned out. None of us took defenses because I don't know about you guys. I'm not in any leagues anymore that play defenses, so it didn't seem necessary to draft one there. Who's your favorite pick? Let's say of the last 4 rounds. Who's a guy that you didn't draft that you're surprised was there, that you were happy was there because now you're going to target him in the future? Like, what was somebody in the last 4 rounds? I should have some Jeopardy music ready to give you guys a second to look.
Wait, so last 4 rounds that from drafted on any team?
Yeah, that you didn't pick. So any team but yours.
Oh, okay.
It's 100%. It's Curtis Samuel for me, I think.
Wow.
I really like Curtis Samuel. The only issue I have with him that's tough is the only issue that I would say that I have with him is that is he going to be able to be a reliable source of fantasy points? When are you going to know when to start him? Is he going to be boom or bust? I think in best ball he's a fantastic pick. Because I think that we see another step forward from him where he gets even more opportunity in the offense. I mean, he really flashed last year. He's somebody I really like. Of all the late round wide receivers, I love Deshaun. I love Kiki Kuti. I like the D.D. Westbrook. And I think, Anthony Miller, and then also going Curtis Samuel. I think all those guys, are prime for kind of a step forward in the offense. So I have no problem with that. But for me, it's definitely Curtis Samuel. He's somebody that I really thought about going with, but I felt solid with all my wide receivers, especially going wide receiver early. And then my boy Josh Gordon, was there. So I can't get out of a draft without drafting Josh Gordon, just because me and him have been going at it since 2013, and I continue to hold out hope. That he finally gets it all together. I mean, this man had an entourage around him. New England put a whole entire staff around him so he could not get in any sort of trouble, and they're around him all the time. They have the bye week. They allow him to have one day out, and he makes a bad decision again.
So what does that say about him? You're like, he had all the support around him, and he still couldn't do it. But I love this guy.
I do. I love me some Josh Gordon. I always will. I mean, he played well last year when he came back, because I honestly think he could be the guy he is going to be back this year, 100%. He's going to play this year. I think that he ends up being like the Gronk role. I mean, because if you remember last year when he was playing,
guys that you didn't draft, so no more Josh Gordon talk.
I could talk about Josh Gordon.
I know you could, but we're already at an hour, all right? So let's get one from Ryan, let's get one from me, and we'll end the show on a high note, not talking about Josh Gordon.
Well, I'll try and keep it short and sweet for me. It's 2 guys who weren't even drafted at the wide receiver position, which I don't think enough people are going to be talking about. I guess I've seen a lot about Michael Gallup with Dallas. I think he's going to really find his role there. Allen Hurns dealt with that nasty injury last year. If you're not able to get Amari Cooper, I think the best way to get exposure to this offense from the receiver standpoint is Michael Gallup. Kind of struggled at the beginning there, but kind of came on strong. I really like Gallup. And then Mohamed Sanu, he's just always a guy that I find myself taking a shot on late in rounds. As long as Matt Ryan's still there, like, this guy just leans on him as a security blanket. And there's nothing more frustrating than watching your team with Julio Jones and seeing Mohamed Sanu go out there and eat for 10 catches or 15 targets or whatever the case may be. He always just has these type of games. And if you're just looking for depth at the position, I think Sanu is just a great fit. He's really found his way to garner attention from Matt Ryan in key situations, especially when the other team is focused on Julio. And I get it, Ridley's there as well too, but it's just, guys just like Sanu just stick around and find a role, and I'm comfortable in starting them as on bye weeks or anything like that as needed.
I love the Michael Gallup call. I didn't realize he didn't get drafted. He definitely should have been drafted. Some of these dudes that got drafted, Brandon Marshall got drafted. What? I mean, it's by the computer, but
right. Doug Baldwin got drafted too. Yeah,
I would say that's kind of the biggest downfall for using Sleeper, is that sometimes they take guys who shouldn't be taken. Doug Baldwin was taken, Isaiah Crowell, Gronkowski, Brandon Marshall, a bunch of guys were taken there.
Yeah.
So I think for me, there's so many wide receivers so deep this year, and that's just what I keep seeing. And I know I've only done 3 drafts, but I mean, we're looking at Anthony Miller, Curtis Samuel, Traquan Smith.
Yep.
All going in the last 4 rounds there. I think Deshaun went too in the last 4 rounds, right? Yeah, Deshaun Hamilton. So wide receiver is so deep this year.
Listen, it's a scary year for zero RB truthers. I'm telling you, it's not looking pretty after you get out of the 5th round there. If you only have 1, 2 running backs, I think you need 3 running backs in the top 6 rounds in order to feel confident about your team having a shot. Just in the way that we just have seen the league, Anthony. You're hitting it on it. It's not so much that like the position is that deep, but just like guys are going to find ways to score in the way that the offenses are designed this day and age. Like it's just a fact. Like Michael Gallup, like going in a later round, like I feel confident in throwing him out there as my wide receiver 3 on weeks if I have to, and getting some guys, earlier on, and the other 2 picks. If you take 3 running backs early, get your 2 picks are for wide receivers, and you can take a quarterback or tight end if you want to with the other one. But I really do think you need 3 running backs who are starters on your team, and that's why I have to go running back.
Yeah, and that being said, though, there still was some nice flyers at the end. I still think Adrian Peterson's a good flyer. I mean, we don't know how Darius Geis's health is going to be, so a last round drop candidate, I think that's fine. Gus Edwards, Duke Johnson, CJ Anderson in Detroit. I mean, we don't, again, injuries with carry on, we don't know. So they're not, it's not like the receivers where they're guys you're going to feel comfortable plugging in at a flex or something on a regular, but there are some nice, flyer spots down there.
Right.
I would go a little younger with my running back flyers. Like I think you did good with Mike Davis down there, and I think Matt Breida's a good one, and Justice Hill. So I would probably stick to a younger side of things for the later running backs, but that's where the late round running back is, right?
Right. I mean, and it's we're in May, right? So I mean, we're going to get far more information. A lot of these other rookie running backs that we're not even talking about that landed in spots that may seem not great are going to kind of surface and things like that. So like, I mean, we're still really early in the process. A guy like Devin Singletary, for example, at Buffalo. I mean, it's the land of old running backs there with LaShawn McCoy, who again is another guy. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a cap casualty. And so I definitely think there's a lot of things are going to change. So I do think it's interesting, fun to do a mock in May, and we're going to continue to do these. But there's definitely things that are going to change. Like heading into last year, everyone kind of said the same thing about zero RBs. Oh, you can't do it. You have to go running back early. You have to go running back early. And it turned out that you really didn't. There was a ton of guys who came on late. I mean, or who came on and it really helped. You were able to use. I mean, if you look at a guy like James White last year was like an 11th round pick, 10th round pick. James Conner went undrafted in most leagues. There's plenty of guys who are gonna rise up through this. We're gonna get, especially once you get into August, when you start seeing all the training camp news, and then when you start getting preseason games, we see some of these guys that maybe a lot of people don't know about. We're gonna get some injuries. You have for example, like the Jackson kid and LA for the Chargers. If something were to happen to Melvin Gordon or what have you, there's all kinds of guys I think that we're not really focused on and we're not really talking about that are kind of they're going to rise up.
Yeah. All right, so that was our first mock draft of the year. I think it was pretty fun. I think it went pretty well. I have to definitely look into some more of these players so that every single one of my drafts doesn't look the same every single time. We'll actually be bringing more strategy-focused mock drafts to you in the future, too. I mean, these first couple ones, we're just going to kind of get our feet wet with the mock drafts. We're probably going to do them every other week or so, as often as we can here in the off-season. I know people are very busy in the off-season with vacations and stuff like that, so... we'll get in as many as we can in the off-season, but closer to July, we'll start to do these every single week, maybe even June, like the end of June, we'll start them. And we'll start to get actual strategies in there. One of us will do zero RB, one will do zero wide receiver, one will try something different, best player available, whatever it is. We'll try to get you different strategies at different spots in the draft so you can see how your draft may play out. And, Sleeper app will be updated with better ADP data by that time as well, so... everything will be cool. We'll hopefully have a listener mock draft. That would be a lot of fun. We won't have to worry about any of those false positive picks like Isaiah Crowell and things like that. So this will be a lot of fun. Stick with us. We hope you liked it. And we'll see you next time for the next TFA mock draft. TFA mock draft number 2, if you're good at counting. And we'll see you then. Have a good night, fellas.